waiting for a lot of details around exams, but as soon as we have them or we have the information available, we will be in a position to share that and communicate out to all of our teachers and advisors as well as students as well. Just briefly thinking about last year and with the change to the way that grades were awarded after A-level results being released in August, despite some of the negative headlines, and undoubtedly some students were negatively impacted, I think it's really worthwhile highlighting here that out of all of the students who received revised grades, 89% of them were placed at either their firm, the original firm choice, or an equivalent of university or college last year. So obviously really stressful time for everybody involved, but the vast majority of those who were impacted were successful in gaining a desired place in either university or college, which is easy to lose these kind of good news stories in what is going on at the moment. The other thing I did want to just also briefly mention, thinking about last year and possible impact onto this year, is we had a lot of questions. We're still getting them at UCAS around whether students will be deferring in higher numbers than normal from 2020 into 2021, and actually the deferral rate in 2020 was basically flat from 2019. So in 2019, 5.14% of students deferred their applications. In 2019, it was 5.7, which is relatively flat, relatively small change. So we're not anticipating kind of that to have a huge impact on competition for places for current cohort students who are applying now, obviously with their own difficulties and challenges to tackle. So in terms of overall numbers, again, despite the challenges, despite all of the uncertainty around life in general, there were, at the beginning of the pandemic, there were genuine fears across universities, across colleges, across the sector that there was going to be a huge kind of drop off in the numbers of students being placed, in the number of kind of the appetite for higher education. As you can see from the board there, really strong numbers of students were placed and accepted across the UK for higher education. Part of that is kind of attributed to kind of, because of the uncertainty, because of the unemployment rate soaring, because of the recession. Actually, we've seen a kind of solace in education. People who are losing employment going back to education. You can see really large numbers of kind of mature students, they're over 35s. But even the age groups from sort of 21 to 35, we got significant numbers of students placed, which again shows higher education, it remains really kind of on the agenda for lots of people across the UK. We saw record numbers of 18-year-olds also accepted, so 37% of all UK 18-year-olds last year were accepted onto higher education, which again is a really positive thing to take away. One other interesting statistic from last year, and I'm sure you guys working in schools and colleges will be all too acutely aware of this. We saw a large increase last year in the number of students declaring they had mental health issues or concerns on their UCAS application. So we saw that mainly in female applicants, and we only saw a small rise in male applicants, which is interesting. And it kind of shows that the times that we're in, and with all of the stresses and strains on students, with the uncertainty around their future, their disruption to their education, and everything that kind of brings with it. We did see numbers of students from disadvantaged backgrounds. We saw and on the face of that, this is a really positive news story. However, we are, over the last sort of 10 to 15 years, there's been a concerted effort across higher education to increase participation levels across all students of all backgrounds, and we're still seeing that there is a massive gap in kind of access to higher education depending on students' backgrounds. From the analysis that we do, so at UCAS, as well as running the admission service, we provide a sort of analysis and insight into everything that's going on. We have estimated that across UK universities, if the top third of universities, so kind of the higher tariff universities, if they all admitted an additional 70 students, so 70 students from the most disadvantaged areas, then the equality gap would be completely removed within 10 years. Now, it sounds nice and straightforward. However, without any change to the way that students are recruited from different backgrounds, the rate at which we're going to narrow that gap, it's going to take 335 years, which is really quite sort of shocking when you look at it and hear it in those terms as well. So yes, lots of great work is being done by people like UniConnect's organisations right across the UK, Steady Hire, really doing great, fantastic work, and we're working very closely with partnerships right across the UK. There still remains a massive kind of access gap across students. We saw clearing again increase in terms of popularity, so students waiting until the last minute to secure a place through clearing. More and more students are feeling confident and getting a place of their choice through clearing, and we this year introduced something called Clearing Plus, which allowed students to basically be matched to university vacancies and higher education vacancies through algorithm. I know algorithm, the phrase is kind of tarnished after last year's exams fiasco, but the algorithm here worked really positively to match students who were in clearing to potential vacancies, and we saw nearly 30,000 students use Clearing Plus to secure a place, which is really great. What we also saw is that universities and colleges working with students were really obviously still working remotely in the vast majority of cases. They were really busy, not only through the exam results period in August, but right up until the start of term and even into kind of October. Clearing's kind of more drawn out. The changes to results, the different appeals, the uncertainty around that was really kind of something which kind of, I guess, highlighted the uncertainty around the whole sector. In terms of popularity, in terms of courses, so this is the figures for 2020 entry. Business and management type courses remain the most popular courses, closely followed by social sciences. Social sciences is mainly made up of sociology and economics, but doesn't include psychology. Psychology is now a separate group of courses. If you're interested in kind of the different courses available and popularity, then there's a link at the end of this presentation to an interactive dashboard where you can have a look and you can see popularity of courses, number of students placed across the UK. In terms of courses that were less popular this year, languages continues to kind of fall away in terms of numbers of students applying, and so it's something to keep an eye on there. Another interesting thing about when looking at courses and popularity is nursing applications. Nursing is always popular every cycle. As you can see, that's the third most, falls into that subjects allied to medicine. Between the 15th of January last year and the 30th of June, nursing applications increased by 63%. So almost as a direct result of everything that was going on, I guess the esteem of nursing and related professions going up as a result of the pandemic, we saw a huge increase in demand for nursing courses. And if we look at it more closely, from the start of the first lockdown, so the March the 23rd, I think it was, until it was released, we saw nearly double the numbers of students for the equivalent period for the previous cycle applying for nursing courses. So again, really highlighting the nursing popularity and kind of medical courses growing in popularity as a direct result of the kind of pandemic and everything that's been going on because of that. Moving on then to the 2021 cycle, before we look forward, just wanted to briefly touch on the medicine, dentistry and veterinary science deadline of the 15th of October. Seems like a lifetime ago now, but we saw again increases in the numbers of students applying for these courses, and you can see their medicine courses hugely grew in popularity. Near over 20% increase in the numbers of students applying. Part of that is because there are more 18-year-olds in the population during this cycle, but also we are, in the surveys that we've done with students, students are really valuing medicine as a, it's always been a highly valued subject and remains highly valued and highly competitive, but more and more people are being drawn to it because of everything else that's going on at the moment. So looking forward, and as I said at the start, I kind of hesitate to kind of predict too confidently, so I'm not going to be doing any kind of Nostradamus style predictions. Just going to talk you through what's happening, what we know, and kind of outline support in place for you. Before I get on to what UCAS is doing in terms of engagement and support we're providing, I did briefly just want to answer the question that Gabby passed on to me before the session about, did I think that, or do we think that there are going to be increased numbers of unconditional offers this year? The short answer is we're not 100% sure. We can't predict. But what we can say is that the Office for Students, which is the new regulator of higher education introduced nearly 2 years ago now, put in place a condition of their members. So vast majority of UK universities and colleges are members of the Office of Students, and they're being asked not to make unconditional offers that aren't in students' interests. What we've also seen is Universities UK, they've released their admissions review at the end of last year, which strongly supported the stopping of unconditional offers to students. So if I were to put some money on it, it's fairly evident from those kind of that kind of policy change that unconditional offers or the conditional unconditional offers will reduce in their the number. One thing to say here is, despite the OFS being a regulator, all UK universities continue to be completely autonomous in the way that they recruit students and the way that they make their offers and their kind of policies around that. And universities are as well conscious that this is a really stressful and difficult time for everybody, and they're always look to act in the best interests of students, of teachers, and obviously to try and recruit the right type of student to their courses as well. So in terms of what UCAS is doing and it continues to do to support students and teachers throughout these kind of unprecedented times, we are obviously we all are all completely working remotely, first of all, and the vast majority of our staff have been doing that since March of last year. We are very active at the moment on a variety of social media channels, including Facebook. So we run Facebook Live sessions for students, and there's a link to our Facebook page there. We do Facebook Live sessions fairly frequently at the moment on a variety of different topics. So whether it be personal statement writing, getting ready for choosing a course, a huge variety, and you can watch back and you can direct students to the Facebook Live sessions there as well. As part of the UCAS which we have available, there are lots of as well sort of videos that you can watch, and we also do live sessions where it allows students to ask industry experts lots of different questions and get answers to questions they want to know as well. We're also running a direct question and answer sessions for teachers and advisors. We are going to be doing one for the deadline this month. The date was supposed to be next Monday, but because of all of the changes in the lockdown, the date is yet to be confirmed. But I will communicate out to you guys in the network once we have a confirmation of that date. If you can't attend, you can always catch up, and there's a link to kind of the library of old question and answer sessions that we've done as well. Another big thing that UCAS does is we have virtual exhibitions each year where it gives students the opportunity to kind of go and speak to universities, speak to colleges, find out lots of information. Now, obviously, these are large events. We're in London and in Birmingham, we can sometimes get sort of 10,000 students over the course of a couple of days. So these are all now happening virtually. We are running a series of these virtual exhibitions in the end of February and through March. The dates for the individual ones are being still decided, what we're doing this time, instead of doing them obviously regionally, because it's all virtual, they are being focused on subjects. So in the autumn last year, we did sort of engineering days, we did business type days. So do look out for those, and there's more information on our website there as well. We do have a dedicated section on UCAS.com which covers all of the latest changes because of coronavirus, and all of the support still available to you guys. So there's a link to UCAS.com there as well. I did also just want to briefly draw your attention to UniBuddy, which is a partnership that UCAS has been working on for a year or probably nearly a year and a half now. And essentially what this is it allows students the opportunity to ask questions of current university students. And what you can do, and what students can do, is if they are, say they are living in Oxford and they want to speak to somebody who's also from Oxford but studying business studies in the Northeast, they can actually find a student with similar background to them, and then match with them, and then instant message them, ask them any questions they want to know, whether it be about the course, whether it be about student life, student accommodation, and it really is something which is proven quite popular. We're seeing sort of tens of thousands of students using that each week now, which is really positive as we get towards the deadline in the next couple of weeks. The partnership is the service is completely free for students to use. It's all they need to do is just log in, and they can get information which is really relevant and timely for them. So I would really encourage students to use that. We know from the surveys that we've done that the sort of current cohort of students really value peer-to-peer information now. Yes, they still want information from teachers and advisors. Yes, they still go to university websites and they look at prospectuses, but that peer-to-peer review and peer-to-peer information is something which is highly valued and highly sought after by the current cohort of students. So I think this is probably the biggest thing for you guys to take away, and hopefully you'll all be aware of it already. But just to be completely clear, if you weren't already aware, the January the 15th deadline, which is the deadline for the vast majority of undergraduate courses, has now been pushed back to the 29th of January at 6 o'clock. So it was due to be next Friday. It's now been pushed back by 2 weeks to 6 o'clock on the 29th of January. This is as a reaction to obviously the new lockdown, the sort of closure of schools. Sorry, I hesitate to use the phrase closure because I know schools are still open for key workers, but hopefully you'll take that in the spirit that it's intended. So the deadline's pushed back for the 29th of January to allow not only students but also you guys to support students remotely whilst making their application. Now, if students are ready to submit their applications at the moment, then great, they should absolutely do so. Shouldn't be sort of delaying it without reason, but they are now working towards the 29th of January deadline rather than the 15th of January deadline. As I'm sure you're aware, announcements and details about what's going to be happening in the summer in relation to exams still remains to be seen. But UCAS, we work closely with all of the examining bodies to capture the results that are awarded to students and pass them on to universities, and we'll continue to do that. And as soon as we have more information about what's happening when and the details, then we will absolutely be passing it on to through all of our usual channels. Applicants or students who haven't submitted an application before the 29th of January can still submit an application late, and I think it's really important to remember that. Just because a person doesn't get the application in time doesn't mean they can't still successfully apply. However, anyone who does apply late is encouraged to speak to their university or college before applying to make sure they're happy to receive a late application. Just going to pause that. I appreciate that this is quite a big thing. Does anyone have any questions at the moment around the deadline? I think, Colin, you've got your hand up.
Yes, just in the chat, Wendy asked, what help is there around students being home educated?
So we have on, I guess it'd be good to know, Wendy, if you're there, what in terms of support for students, we have on UCAS.com a range of resources and guides to completing the application, to writing personal statements. Do you have any kind of specific question?
Yes, I do. I've got a young person who's a young adult carer who is looking at university places this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's home educated, and now in light of saying that schools are going to be marking or grading students accordingly, her mum and herself are very concerned as to how her grades will be determined.
Yeah. So I'm going to come on in a moment to predicted grades, and that is part of the submission process that obviously you guys will be involved with. But there's the predicted grades element and the teacher assessed grades, or as I'm sure you know, are two very separate things. What I would recommend that you do is, in her reference, which I'll talk about the reference guidance in a moment, is make sure, with her consent, that you explicitly kind of outline her situation, how this might have impacted her, and then kind of access to education whilst working and during lockdown. And I don't know if that really answers your question. It's obviously it's a really difficult one.
I suppose it's.
I would also.
Yeah, I suppose it's.
Sorry, go on.
No, I think it's more from the fact that obviously who will be providing the assessment information, because obviously there's no school body. Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that at the moment. I think more guidance is going to be released.
It's something that perhaps we could look into.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is. Yeah. I know last year there was issue of additional support put in place for students who were kind of homeschooled or didn't have that sort of access. What I'll do is I'll pass my email address on to you, and you can drop me an email, and maybe we can have a conversation about this separately. I think that probably works.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Cool. Do anyone else have any questions around the deadline and the changes to that before we move on? Cool. Okay. So in terms of supporting students ready for the deadline, we are still absolutely encouraging students, once their application is completed, once they're in a position to do so, to submit their application, to get it off. Don't leave it to the 29th. Students don't have to have all 5 choices confirmed on their application when they submit. If they're only interested in 1 or 2 choices, they can submit an application with 1 or 2. They are able to then add choices onto the application after submission via track. If they're doing this after the deadline, they do need to just check with the university or college they're applying to first, before they do so. In terms of like practical support for students who are still finishing the application, maybe still trying to polish their personal statement, there's lots of information available on UCAS.com, specifically in the UCAS Hub. If students go in there, they can create a profile, tell us a little bit about themselves, and we can then surface the information which is relevant to the course that they're interested in. We've done a huge amount of webinars and Facebook Live events as well on personal statements, so I would absolutely direct students to that where possible. And the last point now, I think it's kind of really hopefully sort of recognize that that there is lots of help available to students, to teachers and advisors, from UCAS. Absolutely, we've got support teams that are available Monday to Friday at 8:30 to 6 p.m. but also universities and colleges, they all have admissions teams, they all have outreach teams that are ready and waiting and wanting to support students and teachers through these difficult times. So if students do have questions, individual questions, do encourage them to speak to people, to find help, to get support, to be reassured. This is, yes, I know we went through lockdown last year, but these are still really unprecedented times, and there is support available to students where they need it, and don't kind of suffer in silence. If in doubt, pick up a phone, drop an email, somebody, and try and be as confident as possible that they have the right support available to them. In terms of changes, this slide feels slightly futile now. there's been a huge amount of change, and there continues to be lots of change, and no doubt there will be more change over the next couple of months as we kind of navigate through the pandemic. We were going to be releasing a slightly refreshed version of the application form for the 2021 cycle. Obviously, we haven't done that yet. We have slightly increased the application fee for students. So last year, students it was £25. It's now £26. So slight increase there, just to kind of continue to support our services. UCAS being a charity, we rely on the application fee to kind of run our services and support students as best we can. What we have done, and I will tackle this briefly later on in a moment, is we have improved the new advisor portal to hopefully make it more accessible to help you guys support your students as best as possible. We at UCAS, we've done a variety of different engagements with students, and not only kind of supporting them making their application, but also trying to get kind of sentiment from them, what they're thinking around applications, around university. Now, this was these bits of feedback came out of conversations we had with students in October and November. So yeah, although they are now slightly old, I think the sentiment it still remains. So students still have a really keen appetite for higher education. Upwards of 80% of students who we spoke to in October, November said they were still absolutely committed to going next year. Now, because of the lockdowns the last year, and obviously the new lockdown we're in, there is worry that students are feeling less aspirational. They're doubting their own abilities to apply successfully for courses. And we are really trying to encourage that students to be aspirational, to apply for courses they want to, and really make sure that they are supporting themselves and encouraging themselves to be aspirational in their decision making when they're applying for courses. Yes, students need to be realistic in their application, but yes, they should absolutely also be aspirational in what they apply for. A big part traditionally of university research and choices is for students going to university campuses, going to open days, going to having taste lectures. Now, obviously, over the last year, this opportunity has just been wiped out. The universities are doing an absolutely fantastic job, and UCAS, we're doing these virtual exhibitions to try and give digital opportunities, research opportunities to students. And although these opportunities are great and they can provide information, students are still concerned about applying for university courses without actually ever physically visiting a university campus. We did see last year only a slight but a noticeable change in that students were actually applying closer to home when they were applying to university. So within a 2-hour radius, we saw quite a big increase in the numbers of students applying for universities within 2 hours, a 2-hour drive time of their hometown or city, which I think is kind of reflective of the times that we're in. And really, I'm going to go in a minute, I'm going to slightly contradict myself, but students are understandably concerned about potentially moving to university, moving away to a new town or city, and being caught in a lockdown. Hopefully, and I'll go into this in a bit more detail in a moment, this isn't stopping them being aspirational or looking away, but they are consciously aware of it and critical and thinking critically about their choices when they're thinking about what could potentially happen if they go to university. And I think it's a situation which is, that just needs to be monitored, and students need to be supported through it. And we don't have answers at the moment for lots of things. You guys won't have the answers. The uncertainty is really difficult to navigate, but it's just something to be aware of. So that COVID, although it is obviously a factor for students to consider, it's not crucial in decision making. Students are still citing the course, the university, town or city itself, accommodation opportunities has been like the main drivers when they're thinking about university. They're looking increasingly at university websites to kind of garner information, and they are, as I said, appetite for university still remains really strong. for across the board really. We have also picked up quite a strong sentiment that yes, virtual events and digital information is great, but students are quite skeptical of information they view online, which I think is a really positive thing to hear. They don't always feel that they're representative of what life is really like, and they can be quite cynical around kind of the information that they receive, which I think is good, and it's good to encourage students to really think hard and ask the right questions and find out all the information they want to before making a choice about where they apply. Now, obviously, the COVID impact and the new lockdown continues to undoubtedly play a part in students' concerns and worries, and I've gone through a lot of these in a moment. That last point about exam scheduling is now kind of kaput because of the new lockdown, and as I said, once we have more information around what's happening in terms of results and the awarding process, we will be out to communicate it to you in a moment. In a moment, going to go through and talk to you guys in a bit more detail about the new reference guidance, which has changed dramatically for this year. I've talked a lot around virtual open days, and I'm not going to talk about them too much. What I just wanted to do is just share with you these different tools to kind of access the different virtual events which are available. So here we've got a virtual event search, so students can search for a university or college, and then it will take them to the virtual tour. Lots of universities now as well are doing great kind of virtual tours. So in addition to their sort of standard offering, they're doing kind of one-to-one or group tours online, where they'll get a current student and they'll do a virtual tour of campus either via Zoom or Teams or whatever, and they're also trying to offer, where possible, online lectures and guest lectures, and we're seeing kind of more of those sort of spring up week on week. In the absence of students being able to actually physically visit a new town or city, these UCAS city guides are really helpful for students to have a look at. So I would encourage students to sort of push students towards these if they are unsure about what a place might be like. So just before, I think it was the beginning of December, we released new reference guidance for the current cohort of students. So what we've basically, because of the ongoing disruption caused by the pandemic, we have simplified what is required for students' reference when they're applying through UCAS. First thing I really want to stress before I give this new guidance is, if you have already completed references or you're close to completed references, don't worry, still submit them as normal. It won't impact the application at all. The alternative method that I'm going to mention is just there to give you some sort of flexibility and to help you get applications submitted as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Applicants will not be disadvantaged with either approach. We've engaged massively with universities and colleges to ensure they're prepared to receive either option, and this guidance is just there to support those teachers of ways where it might help them save time. With now the move to remote teaching is hopefully going to be there for a time saver. This new guidance as well, another caveat, is only for 2021. We'll obviously continue to monitor the situation, and also I think this is a really important point. We are still strongly recommending that applicants applying for professional type courses, so teaching, nursing, social work, healthcare type courses, we still recommend that a standard sort of reference is submitted. However, for the majority of students who are applying, we are saying that you are now able, if you want to provide a kind of slimmed down version of the reference to support their application. So we do recommend that you provide contextual information around your centre's response to COVID, not only currently but over the last year, how it impacted lower 6th and year 12 opportunities, teaching time. This is really important to provide context. So the reference is there to support an application, to endorse an application, and to provide context for attainment. So the contextual information piece is really, really important. If you want to have this bit copied across all of your cohort, then that's absolutely fine. We are definitely recommending that in terms of your response, the range of different opportunities available to students. We know that there's a huge disparity in the opportunities available to students throughout lockdowns in terms of access to content, in terms of access to support, and this isn't here to kind of judge anyone or to make it anything other than supportive of a student's application, to provide context and to try and help them get a place at their chosen higher education course. What we are asking you to do, where relevant, is to provide any information around extenuating circumstances, how that could have impacted a student, particularly over the last sort of year or so. If they have been impacted by illness or bereavement or anything at all, then if appropriate, and if obviously with the permissions, talk about it here, make it relevant to the application. We are also asking you, if you are predicting students as a part of the application, sort of predicted grades massively different from their kind of level 2 achievement, to talk about why you're doing that, and then kind of make it relevant to the application, supporting the student in a positive way. What we are saying is optional is that individual element to reference. So in the past, the guidance was, get information from all teachers, all tutors, and then use that to write the reference. That isn't important for this year. It's there for those professional courses, or where you think it might be appropriate, but you don't need to do that for all of your cohort support this year. And there's a link at the bottom of the page here to read more details about reference guidance and how it's changed. Now, I did before coming on to that, I was unsure whether I should go into predicted grades too much, but I think it is important, even with the exam cancellations, predicted grades element of UCAS application is still separate to the teachers awarded grades that will be awarded this year. So in terms of guidance around predicted grades, we have released new guidance in the end of December, which we are working to update at the moment, and we'll continue to update and enhance the guidance to support you as much as possible. Predicted grades are your professional judgment on what you think your students are capable of in the best case scenario, if everything goes to plan, and they do form an important part of the application. These predicted grades are then obviously used by universities and colleges as part of the admissions process, and different universities, different colleges will use these grades in different ways, put different emphasis on it depending on the individual course and the individual student. I'm not going to go into any more details around about kind of providing predicted grades, but I think it's just wanted to really quickly highlight that predicted grades, and this hasn't changed for this year, this is just general guidance. Predicted grades should always be provided for the best interest of a student. You're looking to support a student, you're looking to prepare them for a successful career in higher education. Absolutely be aspirational, but you don't want to be setting up your students for for failure at higher education. We've always said, and we continue to say at the moment, that predicted grades should, where possible, be data driven. Now, I know that for current upper sixth year 13 cohort, the number of data, or the amount of data available to support students, isn't going to be the same as the previous years, and the Department for Education are going to be providing sort of additional information around exam awarding and about teacher assessed grades in hopefully in the not too distant future. But where possible, if you can use data to support your predicted grades, it will help you not only provide the grades, but then help support your students once they get into university as well. Briefly, we recommend that predicted grades shouldn't be impacted, and I know this is very easy for me to say sat here. Predicted grades shouldn't be impacted by the student's choice on the university application. They should be provided, professionally. Shouldn't be influenced by where the university is applying for, or by kind of student behaviour which isn't, you know, directly related to their academic performance. Briefly, before I sort of go on to resources which are available to you, because as I said a moment ago, it's really important to remember that different universities, different colleges will look at predicted grades very differently depending on who they are and what the student's applying for. So hopefully you guys will be aware that on UCAS.com there is a dedicated advisor section which contains information, advice and guidance, as well as the new advisor portal. So the new advisor portal was launched in 2019, so ready for the 2020 cycle. We are continuing to work on it, to improve it, to try and make it as easy as possible for you guys to use. We're really focusing on the visual presentation, making it as kind of digestible as possible. We've introduced the ability for teachers to be able to email students either individually or as a group from the portal. And we, as you can see visually, we are making it easier for you to, you know, navigate, to find applications and to really support students as best as possible. The advisor newsletter is probably one of the key things. If you take anything away from today, I would say click on the link here when you get the presentation, sign up to receive the newsletter, and it will help you to stay up to date with all of the ongoing changes that are happening. So we can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, but if you sign up to the newsletter, you can be, you know, really assured that you will get the information sent to you as soon as we know it. We have, over the last 12 months, been working really hard on our professional development platform, and this is a free tool for teachers and advisors, and there's a range of digital content for you to use and to look at and to support you with your UCAS process. Really wanted to draw your attention to our new, there's a module which focuses on the application form. It literally goes through the entire application form. It signposts resources, it's signposts like good practice. So if you are trying to support students over the next week or so to complete an application, have a look at the module. You'll get, you know, a complete guide of the application form. You'll understand what your students are seeing and you'll be able to help them as well. We do recommend that you have a dummy at UCAS application. In addition to that, this digital module will really help you confidently support your students. As I said, we've got the advisor section on UCAS.com. This is where all of the information is stored, and there's lots of things available there. I'm going to go in a moment. I'm going to show you some lesson plans that we've got for the UCAS Hub. We have lesson plans for huge range of different things. We have lesson plans for supporting students completing the application, supporting students using or finding a course, supporting students through clearing, supporting students through an extra. So do have a look at that if you haven't looked at that already. The advisor guide is effectively like the Bible of information that you need to support students through UCAS. So on the advisor guide, you've got all of the key information that you need, all of the links to all of the resources. So do have a look at that if you haven't done so already. At the beginning of February, so between the 1st and the 3rd of February, we are running a virtual conferences virtual conference for teachers and advisors all across across the UCAS. So if you haven't looked at that, I would really encourage you to do that. This year more than ever, it's going to be really important to try and stay up to date, to hear from not only from UCAS but from the universities and colleges right across the sector, providing you the latest up-to-date information, guidance and support.
Charlie, can I ask?
Yes.
There's a couple of questions in the chat.
Yes. Yeah.
Just before. It'll be several slides away. So I have one from Graham. One of your slides, a couple slides ago, made some mention of 40% apply for 5 courses. So we were just wondering in the chat what that meant.
Yeah.
What that referred to.
It meant that at the time of the survey, so I think this one was in November, 40% of students knew the 5 choices they wanted to apply for, rather than. So the vast majority of students apply for 5 choices in a normal cycle. So let me just try and go back to the, so 40% of the people that we surveyed in November had decided on their 5 choices. And the reason I was highlighting that, sorry I didn't make it clear at the time, is normally at that point in the cycle it was around like 50 to 60%. So it's basically just showing that people are, or students were still unsure of what their choices were, which is unusual for that period.
Great, thank you for clarifying. There's also another one, if I can ask quickly, from Safia, asking, and by the way, Safia, if I've mispronounced your name, I'm very sorry. But the question is, one of her students has requested that their current employer do their reference. So this student is working in a hospital and plans to go into nursing, and they wanted to know, what do you suggest? Should as a educational institution, should they be encouraging them to get an employer reference over a teacher reference?
Ultimately, it's the decision of the applicant as to who they choose to provide their reference. Now, if they are still in sort of college or school as a full-time student doing part-time work, I would recommend that it's probably better to have an educational reference, purely because you as the referee will be able to provide kind of an academic assessment on their suitability for higher education, suitability for the course. It's difficult. I know, I can see the students angle their point of view. They want to have the nursing sort of reference, and I would just question whether the employment reference, the nursing reference, would be able to provide the academic content that's needed. You know, the nursing courses, yes, they are very practical, but there is a strong academic demand on the students and the applicants as well. The other thing to bear in mind is, if the student does get the reference from their employer, you as the teacher or the support for the student won't be able to monitor the progress of the application, so you won't be able to help them. You won't be able to quality check their application, and also you won't then get their individual record in your stats, in your end of cycle stats. Obviously, you don't have to have them, but if that's important to you, you just need to bear that in mind. So you won't have visibility of offers they receive, or where they end up getting placed, if they get a place. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but I kind of hope that gives you a bit more clarity around the difference.
Yeah, she says thank you, so I think that answered her question. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks. Okay. Sorry, I've only got one screen, so just checking back onto the right page. Yeah, so gone through the resources, or I said, you'll get a copy of this presentation after today, so you'll be able to access it and go through and use these as best as possible. Just wanted to draw your attention to the UCAS Hub support that we have in place for teachers. So we have, as I said, lots of different toolkits ready for you to use, but the Hub one contains lesson plans, it contains homework sort of information and packs you can give out to students. So if you've got students who are, maybe in their lower sixth, year 12 at the moment, and they're starting to think about, what they might want to apply for next year, then you can, direct them to these and help them to feel as informed as possible. And as I said, in addition to all of the Facebook Live stuff and the other video content we have through the Hub, we have a series of live events which allow students to ask questions directly to not only UCAS, but as I said, university staff as well. We have other packs around apprenticeships, around personal statement writing, so do have a look in the toolkit section of the advisor part of UCAS.com for all of the additional information and support which is available. So appreciate there's a lot of information I'm sort of throwing your way in a short period of time, and I just wanted to leave you with telephone number to give to your students if they wanted to speak to UCAS. These guys are there 8:30 to 6, right up until the deadline, so do direct students to us if they have any individual issues with their application. I will just get you the number in a moment for the school support line as well. Do feel confident to call us. We are all still working, to support you right up to the deadline. We, as a training team, have an email address, training@ucas.ac.uk. Any questions? If you can't find any of the resources that I've mentioned, please, drop an email there, put it for my attention, Charlie, and we'd be happy to kind of point you in the right direction. And I would also just direct you to our social media channels. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, but also Instagram and Snapchat and a variety of other places as well. So do encourage your students to interact with us, and we'll continue to provide up-to-date information and advice for students as best we can throughout the next couple of months. Thank you very much. I know it's difficult. I've been working remotely. Hopefully you guys find that useful. Colin, you got a question? Sorry.
Yes. But first of all, thank you. It's really comprehensive, and I think that the teachers and advisors that are here today have really benefited. I have another question from Safia saying that they have a new member of staff who's doing references for the first time, and just wondered if on UCAS there's like a crib sheet for them, or some kind of top tips or anything like that. This is for the teacher who is going to be doing a reference.
Yeah, so on our professional development platform, so the pdp.ucas.com, if I go back to it, there is a module dedicated to reference writing, and this goes through, so the link here, pdp.ucas.com, there's an interactive module that teachers can complete, and it will basically show them all of the screens that you'll see when you're reference writing, but it also then gives additional advice and guidance around reference writing, what to include, what not to include, how to submit it via the portal. That and the advisor guide will be the two things I'd recommend.
Great. Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, she said brilliant. She's going to share that. Are there any further questions for Charlie before we end this session? If so, you can either unmute or by all means put it in the chat. While we're waiting to see if anyone has any further questions, I want to thank, first of all, Charlie again for attending and doing this brilliant presentation for us. I want to thank all the teachers and advisors that have attended today. Please do look out for the email you receive with a link to the our teacher CPD page, and where you can find this recorded, as well as other further sessions, and our feedback form, which we really appreciate. If you can take just a couple of minutes is all it'll take to answer a couple of quick questions. Our next session is in February, on February 23rd, which is on student finance. And though we did have a speaker on student finance before, he's coming back. He is that good. But also we had quite a few parents that attended the last one. This one will be specifically aimed at teachers and advisors. There'll be a presentation, and he'll also cover information about disabled student allowance as well. So it could be really useful. Anything further? I don't think there's any further questions. Do you see any, Charlotte?
No, I'll just post the Padlet link again, though, if anyone has any comments, or if you'd like to sort of give your feedback on the session, that'll be brilliant. I'll just post that now. Thank you for coming, everyone, and if you have any further questions, then put them in the chat now. Last chance.
Thank you. Can I also just reflag our evaluation form there? If you could complete it, be massively grateful. We are obviously still kind of trying to adapt to doing this all remotely, so if there's any feedback you could provide, would be really appreciated. And I said, any questions around anything to UCAS, if you drop an email, we'd be more than happy to come back to you and help you.
Great. And actually what we'll do is we'll send both. Again, yours says less than 2 minutes, so it must be nice and short, like our evaluation. So yeah, we'll put the two in the same emails that we send out to everyone.
Thank you. And Colleen, I'm happy for you to share my email address as well if you want to with people from today.
Thank you so much.